John, can I ask you a quick Salesforce question?
Uh-huh.
So, it, it, it- so, um, if a customer wants to have kind of a parent opportunity and child opportunity, do you
hmm
know if that's possible? So like the scenario essentially is that if I'm like a professional service organization and maybe one team wants to be able to sell. I don't want to give examples. Technology A services and technology, and then another team wants to sell technology B services and technology C services, and they all have their separate quotes and their separate opportunities going on, but really they're working with the same customer. So what they're hoping for is that this all eventually combines together to having one major one like whole opportunity that it like
Mm,
forms to. But they don't want the quoting process to be the same because the way that those individual team salaries is different. So is that I don't think this is a coding question. I think it's more of like a opportunity level question.
yeah, it's a business process question. It sounds to me like a process question. The temptation is to start thinking about how we can juggle this with multiple opportunities. And that's a trap because if we're posed with a problem and the first thing we jump to is building stuff or what records we're going to create, that's often it's often a trap because then you get stuck in the tactical quicksand and you start sinking and then you go, well, but then we need more record types for operator. Then we need to add more sales stages. Now we got to do that. And before you know it, you're off, you're sinking, you're up to your eyeballs in the tactical quicksand. And you go, how the hell did we get here? Why does our opportunity have 500 fields on it? Why do we have all these custom objects and stuff? So, um, let me summarize your question. I have one big giant business that has lots of divisions.
Yep,
The
yep,
divisions have separate sales processes. They sell completely different things, software, professional services, microwaves, whatever, wildly
yep,
different products. And the idea is that we want to have a parent opportunity to kind of oversee them all. Each of
yep,
you is going to have your own deal. They're all going to roll up under this massive parent opportunity. And the question is, can we do that? I mean, tactically, sure, whatever. Create a lookup called parent opportunity, and then you can create just like parent account. That's all it is a lookup to the next account. Fantastic. But is that the actual solution here? Well, first, when I was thinking about going for a Salesforce Certified Technical Architect certification eventually, I no longer have that as a goal. Maybe that'll change. As you know, from the earlier conversation about politics, I change my mind about things all the time. But at least right now, I don't want to go for that. But when I was thinking about it at first, I wanted to know, well, do I got to be a developer to be a Salesforce certified technical architect? The answer to that is no. It would be helpful, but it's not essential. What is essential is that you identify the problem, design a solution, and defend the solution. And the subtext of defining the problem is defining the right problem. So is the problem that we don't have a parent opportunity, or is the problem that we have that our sales processes and what we sell in the business is just so big and so diverse? I mean, we could take Oracle as an example. You could take 3M as an example. You could do what's another good one? Mitsubishi. I mean, Mitsubishi has so many different types. Yamaha, so many different types of products that are completely unrelated to it. Motorcycles to trombones. I mean, my God, pianos. Could you get more different? Um, there are so many companies in the world, these mega corporations that have hundreds of subsidiaries. They all sell different stuff. They're all different processes. And that's probably that's the one extreme. And then this other extreme is we have a very simple 5-person mom and pop and they sell bricks. I don't know, something very simple. In the middle, we have this situation where we have a reasonably large company that has, through acquisitions, usually they acquire these other products to try to round out their product portfolio. Salesforce is a good example of this. Salesforce was just Sales Cloud, and then it added Service Cloud, and then it added some of these other things. And then you go, okay, well, now we're going to add Marketing Cloud. Well, Marketing Cloud was a completely different, with Buddy Media, I think was the company, so they bought that. Completely different product. Pardot, completely different product. But we're trying to round out what Salesforce can do. And the way we're going to do that is to buy companies that have the features that we don't have. And then we're going to co-brand it. That's exactly what happened with Oracle. That's what happens with SAP. It's probably what happens with Google as well. Microsoft, any of these big companies that acquire others, when these other companies that are acquired started their business, they're not collaborating with the big one on how they're designed. So in Revenue Cloud, B2B commerce is like that. It had its own product object originally. Well, that doesn't coincide very nicely with CPQ or with even standard quotes and opportunity products, because those use the product to table. I could go on. So sometimes the question that I'll ask is like, what is the question we're trying to answer? I mean, is this really in this scenario? Is this really a scenario where it's actually one gigantic opportunity that's going to close at the same time? Or is this more general account growth? We have 4 or 5 different lines of business. They sell completely different things, but this is Walmart. So Walmart's going to buy all sorts of things from each of these 5 divisions that sell different stuff. So we have one customer, Walmart, and Walmart's going to buy from all 5 divisions. But are those 5 divisions selling in a coordinated effort to try to sell all 5 divisions at the same time? Probably not, I'm guessing. I don't know. What's the answer there?
Hmm.
Is that the case, Kevin? Like
Um,
they're actually trying to coordinate effort across all of these sub opportunities as one massive deal, like a giant contract renewal at Salesforce, where you're trying to get all of the pieces to align, so you get this, boom, we're going to get a new agreement that starts on the renewal of all these different products? Or is it a little here, a little there, a little there? We're just trying to
no,
correct.
the first is correct. It's basically what Salesforce does, right? Like I'm selling marketing. I have a team selling marketing cloud. I have a team selling revenue cloud. I have a team selling professional services. Those processes, are just,
Core,
but
yeah,
essentially, contract we're going to provide to the customer
yeah.
is going to be a singular thing, but all our different sales processes are very different from each other.
That would be, I mean, there's no right answer. I would err on the side of not having a parent opportunity, though, because I see this as general account growth and probably contract consolidation rather than like maybe you have one umbrella, rather than seeing perhaps one giant opportunity with a bunch of child opportunities. I might see it something slightly different, as in one master service agreement contract with different CPQ contracts that hold different subscriptions for different things. So they all kind of roll up to the same MSA, same
Yeah.
general terms, but these are different contracts for different things. Well, if you're working with Salesforce professional services, you're gonna sign an SOW with professional services. And then when you're buying software, you're gonna sign with software. And if you're gonna, I would even bet that if you're gonna get MuleSoft or Marketing Cloud, shit, that might even be different pay. I don't know. I have no idea. This is all speculation. The From a tactical side of things, I would be hesitant about a parent opportunity, because what's the opportunity amount? Oh, you're going to change all your reporting to exclude these parent opportunities. And then how long are these parent opportunities? Is that going to affect your aging report? It seems at first glance to be an unnecessary complication.
Okay.
It's kind of like you take, say, a mechanical watch, right? Unnecessary complication. A $25 Timex is more accurate and precise than a mechanical watch. A mechanical watch has all these gears inside, and it's all of these variables of how much you move is going to depend on the winding, and the spring might wear out or whatever, and slow down or speed up the time. It's not as precise or accurate. So it's needless complication, but it's also really kind of cool. It's an engineering marvel. Like, wow, this complicated machine is sitting on my wrist, kind of a thing. This could be a similar situation. Could it be really cool to have this complex architecture of opportunities where it all kind of rolls up and all this? Yeah. But does that actually help the business move forward? Probably not. Will it confuse the end users on what exactly the process is? Probably. There's no real right answer here, but I tend, in this general scenario, if we're selling things that are so different, the process is different, the products are in different universes, I'd probably track those as different opportunities. Because it sounds like you almost have, it's one company. It's kind of like how in Org 62 you have a company record, which has multiple accounts underneath. I don't even understand how Salesforce's own account management process works, even though I worked there. I just knew that there was like 3M company, but then you'd have the 100 accounts that are all 3M or its subsidiaries underneath. And I don't
Right.
know. I never fully understood how that worked. That's interesting. It was surprising to me that the mothership itself does something that doesn't seem like it would be a best practice, but most of Org 62 is interesting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you answering my question.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of direction on what you're trying to solve.
Mhm.
All right. Speaking of solving, let's find something on the board to solve. I'm glad I made this Kanban because I don't have a lot of time to prepare for these during the week because I'm trying to, bill clients, generate revenue, and all that good stuff. So the fact that I have this Kanban board means I could just show up here, pick something that sounds good, and then start building or showing something. How about maybe we do this? I started calculating ACV, ARR, and ACV last week. Kevin was on very briefly, but by the time I actually had anything ready to show, I ran out of he ran out of time and had to jump. But what I was showing was the value of twin fields in CPQ and how we can use those values to the twin field functionality to pass values from object to object in CPQ without writing any code. As long as our field data types and our API values are a match, the data will pass from the quote line to the opportunity product, from the quote line to the order product, the quote line to the asset, the subscription, from the subscription back to the renewed quote line for the subscription, and all sorts of other stuff. I didn't build all of that out, but I did build a basic example. So let's review what I built and how it works. Here was my my quote that I was working on for my ACV calculation. Let's go ahead and run this again. I'll change my subscription term so that it calculates to something else. How about we do, let's do a quantity change or something that'll fundamentally affect the ARR. Let's do 100 Peanut Butter Jelly Club memberships. We're still going to do 1 year of support, and then let's change the subscription term to 36. This is going to get a lot bigger. Calculate. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. We're going to generate some money. Let's do it. Now I save. Now what's happening here, if you remember, I had built some price rules to calculate the annual contract value and the monthly contract value, or the annual recurring revenue and the monthly recurring revenue, depending on what language your business uses for these different processes. Let's show the price rule now, just so we have a sense of how this works. I have only one price rule in the system so far. It's to calculate the monthly recurring revenue and the annual recurring revenue. As you can see, I like to get very clever with my titling of my price rules. The names of the price rules have zero effect on the functionality. The scope is calculator because I want this calculating when the prices calculate. That's in the calculator scope. I don't have any conditions because I want this to run all the time. It's active. It's in the after calculate event. So once the price waterfall runs, we have another price rule calculator event called after calculate. That basically takes, now we have available to us anything that was calculated as part of the price waterfall we can use in our price rule. That's what we did with the price actions rather. First, to calculate the monthly recurring revenue. That's this formula here. Again, this formula is from the original SteelBrick community. I clipped it into Evernote long time ago and have kept it there ever since. I've used this on many projects. And to calculate the annual recurring revenue, we basically take that previous formula and multiply the result by 12, and that's how we get to the annual contract value. We're breaking everything down into the month, and we'll just multiply it by 12. That gets us our annual recurring revenue. We are updating that information at the quote line level, and we're stamping this into a currency field for annual recurring revenue and monthly recurring revenue. The reason that we're stamping this into a currency field that is editable versus a formula field that just contains a value is because I want to do a roll-up summary of these values at the quote header level. That's where we end up right here. An annual recurring revenue of $12,010 and a monthly recurring revenue of $1,000.83. These values were originally calculated on the quote lines, and then I'm looking up through the quote lines to figure out what the total should be. If I cloned any of these, just for the sake of ridiculousness, let's clone a couple of times. Note that the price is changing every time I click clone, because cloning is adding a quote line. And when you add or delete a quote line, it reruns the calculation sequence. There we go again. Now I save. And when we go back, now I see that my annual recurring revenue and monthly recurring revenue have changed. Go in again and put this back to something more reasonable. And the same will happen. Let's get rid of these two. Let's get rid of these two and save. I have 100 PB&J Club memberships and 1 support. This is the price of all of that. And then when I return to my opportunity, I see that my opportunity products have the same. Because the opportunity products have the quantity of 100, 360 is the sales price, price times quantity gets us our total. This does function differently if I'm using, say, block pricing and discount schedules. But this is a very basic product setup. I can drill further into the product and I can see the total price. The total prices of my opportunity products sum up to create my opportunity amount. When you first create an opportunity, the opportunity amount field is editable until I add opportunity products, at which point the opportunity products supersede the editable opportunity amount field and it becomes locked. We cannot edit it. I've seen people complain about this in the community, but trust me, it was a good decision of Salesforce to design their product this way. All right. The way that I was able to get the details about the annual recurring revenue and the monthly recurring revenue on the opportunity was because I first included those as twin fields on the opportunity product. All of the calculation happened on the quote line, particularly this quote line. That'll take me back here and I see my ARR and MRR calculations on the quote line. When the primary quote synchronized with the opportunity and the opportunity products, that's where the twin fields carried those data values along, put them into editable currency fields, and then rolled them up onto the account level. And that's where we ended up. Now I could continue passing these values downstream if I wanted to do so. this could come in handy if we want to show on the contract records themselves, what is the ARR, what is the MRR of this contract. Though there is a challenge with this because the subscription records on the contract is a lookup relationship to the contract, not a master detail, which means that between those two objects, we do not have a roll-up summary capability. We would have to use another mechanism to do that. These days, I would probably use flow if I wanted to physically stamp the values onto the contract. But what I might do that's a little easier would be to create some sort of widget where the function of the widget is to essentially, as you would make a report, it's just going to be a dashboard, like a micro dashboard or a component on the page that says, here's the ARR, here's the MRR of this contract based on active subscriptions. And then that would probably be how I would do it, rather than just stamping a value on the contract. Users would probably find more value in seeing some pretty looking widgets than to hunt on the screen to try to find these values. You could also calculate non-recurring revenue as well. You could even use the same price rule to do that. So if I wanted to modify the price rule to show the non-recurring revenue, I could do that as well. Maybe that's what we'll do on this call, because the formula is fairly straightforward. If we dissect this, we essentially say if the subscription pricing field is null, then print null. Otherwise, we want to take the prorate multiplier. If that's not 0, then we're going to multiply it by 12. We got all this other stuff that we're going to do here inside this formula. I'm not going to deconstruct how this formula works. Just trust me when I say that it works. But what would we do if we wanted to calculate the non-recurring revenue? Because I want to know what's one time, what's recurring, what's the total value of the one time, what's the total value of the recurring, what's the annual recurring revenue value, what's the monthly recurring revenue value. You could also include fields. If you're just looking for more ideas around this area, you could do total recurring revenue. That's another data point that you could track. If you wanted to say, just separate out what is the total recurring revenue for this. If that's the case, we could probably modify this formula some and then just inject the results. You'd almost say, just take the net total of all quote lines where subscription pricing is not null, and that's going to tell you. Because I have a very clear, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but we have a very clear way of knowing whether a product is one-time or recurring, and that's the subscription pricing field, which appears first on the product and then on the subscription, on the quote line. And the field has multiple pick list values of fixed price versus percent of total, but the logic of the field is binary. If subscription pricing is null, then we're not using subscription pricing, which means we're using non-subscription pricing or one-time pricing. But if it is null, if it is not null, then we are using subscription pricing, and therefore it should count as subscription revenue, as part of what this formula is telling us here. Let's calculate some non-recurring revenue. First, I need to define, I need to create a field to capture what the non-recurring revenue is going to be, and then we can build from there. Just like the annual recurring revenue and monthly recurring revenue are on the quote line records, that's where we're going to create fields for non-recurring revenue. I'll do that down here, drilling into the quote line. I edit my object. And I could go to fields and relationships and say, I want a currency field. Again, because I want the ability to roll up to the quote. scroll up to the quote, I have to have some sort of editable field because formula fields cannot be included as part of roll-up summaries. Non-recurring revenue. We'll do 16 and 2. That's my usual. 16 digits to the left of the decimal, 2 digits to the right of the decimal. That looks good. You can figure out your own field level security. You can figure out your own page layouts and save. For simplicity in the page layout, I will move that field near the other recurring revenue fields. I've got my non-recurring revenue. Okay, there's annual, there's monthly, here's non-recurring revenue. Yes, I'll edit that. Going back to the fields, I'm going to copy that API name because I need that to appear in my pick list as a target field that I'm going to update. Price actions are what do all of the actual updating. The price rule is the general framework for price automation in CPQ. And we have two basic functions within that. We have the conditions under which the rule should fire, and we have the actions that the rule should take when the conditions are met. We have another related function called the lookup query that we haven't talked about yet, but I can give an example of that in a future episode. But the lookup queries function as building a data query of an object to retrieve a value or multiple values, depending on what your use case is, and then taking those values and injecting them into various fields on the quote line, etc. For the non-recurring revenue, I need to update the price action. I've already updated the target field and the price action for annual and monthly recurring revenue. Now we need to add non-recurring revenue. Again, the price actions take action. They do something. And what do? They update fields. Product rules manage records. Price rules update fields. That's how I remember to keep them straight because they sound very similar. They seem to function very similarly. And people, I got confused at first when I was getting into CPQ, what the difference was between the two. And after many years of doing this, I came away with product rules, manage records, price rules, update fields. Here is the target field. Again, we're using the field API name. I copied and pasted it because I don't want to make mistakes. We also must remember, again, that the pick list values are case sensitive because Salesforce CPQ uses client-side JavaScript to calculate the prices. It builds these price rules in memory and runs your calculations there in your browser. Whereas Apex is case insensitive. You don't have capitalization doesn't matter, but in JavaScript, a capital A and a lowercase a are completely different characters. Now, I have my pick list value added here, but I'm not done yet because I have a controlling field. This is core Salesforce admin stuff. When I have a controlling field, I need to tell that controlling field which pick list values in the dependent field, target field in this case, should belong to each thing. Because I created the non-recurring revenue field on the quote line object, I'm going to select non-recurring revenue, add that as a possibility. If you want to test how this works, you can click the preview button, you get a pop-up, you can see that the pick list values function as designed, and then we save our work. From here, I can go back to my price rule and I can start making my changes. Oh boy, definitely fat fingered that one. I can create a new price action. Target object is quote line. Because I updated my field dependencies, here's my non-recurring revenue. But I'm not done yet. I need to figure out what formula to include to actually get my non-recurring revenue here in the first place. What can I do? For this, I like to build my formulas. I could type something. I like copy pasting after I check the syntax. One of my mentors told me that this is not a best practice, but it's my practice. Sometimes it's good to break the rules. Okay, so lightning just threw up on me. That's fine, I don't care. All right, moving right along. What I like to do is, especially since most calculation happens on the quote lines, and a lot of times our price actions use formulas to determine what to plug into the various fields, the target fields that we're using. So I'll create a test field. It's a formula. I'll call it formula test. And in this case, I want it to be a dollar value, but you could change a formula data type after the fact. It's not a big deal. In general, though, especially on the quote line, we want to avoid using formulas as part of our actual solution design. There are significant reasons for this, and understanding the significance of the reasons will help you, number one, design better solutions, and number two, avoid a lot of issues. Or in my case, since I'm essentially known in the industry as a salvage expert and search and rescue swimmer for CPQ projects that have become lost at sea, as much as that gets frustrating sometimes, I'm really good at troubleshooting this stuff. That's what we can avoid. So better solution design, preventing yourself from doing bad things and causing yourself unnecessary problems, and then also for identifying and fixing problems that exist. Now to the reason why. Why don't we want to use formula fields as part of our price automation in CPQ, specifically related to price rules and things? We have to remember that CPQ calculates prices and then Salesforce saves the results. CPQ calculates, platform saves. The calculation of quote values, prices, quantities, whatever else we're doing with price rules or quote calculator plugin is all calculated inside of CPQ before we save a record. And that distinction is critical because the formula function here, I'm making a formula field. Formulas calculate when a record is accessed. Formulas calculate when a record is accessed. That piece, when a record is accessed. For a record to be accessed, a record must exist. For a record to exist, a record must be saved. For a record to be saved, it must go through the triggers and order of execution that's a part of the core Salesforce platform, which happens after prices are calculated. Saving happens after prices are calculated. So if your price calculations depend on something that happens after the prices are calculated, that means you have to run calculation multiple times because to get the value up here, this has to happen. But for this to happen, we go through this once already. So we go through the calculation, we save the results. Based on the results, we go through the calculation, which could change the results, which means we need to calculate again. And we're in an infinite loop. Or a recursive loop, two different flavors of loops that we run into quite a bit. A lot of that's caused by formulas. Or automations, flows, triggers, workflow field updates, process builder, all existing on the quote line that causes unnecessary issues. And a lot of that stuff should be created in the first place using price rules, but sometimes you end up with clients where I have a current client that has core automation on the quote line. And it's not their fault because when they implemented CPQ back in 2014 or 15, the advanced calculator that uses JavaScript didn't exist yet. It was all Apex based. So it was actually good practice to use Apex triggers to update the quote line. The problem is that was never updated. So now, almost a decade later, they're still using some legacy pieces to do modern calculation, and it causes some issues in their system. It's not the first time I've seen it, it won't be the last. But that's why, even if we build formulas and stuff on the quote line, it's imperative to understand those formulas don't exist. Those values the formulas calculate don't exist until we have a record. We only have a record after we save. And we only save after we calculate. There's a lot of implications there. You can stew on this in your own time, but for now, I'm going to move on. For testing purposes only, I create this formula test field on the quote line, and now I'm going to piece together what my formula needs to be so I can copy paste it into the formula of the price action and not have to figure it out here or hope I'm right. Or I like the fact that I can check the syntax here. Not all functions are available in CPQ. There is an article in the knowledge base on which functions are available in CPQ. It does exist. Your basic if, case, not. There's a lot of functionality that you can use here. Check that article to make sure that what you're trying to do is something that can be done. Prior values, that's not something that can be done here. But anyway. How do I know if a product is a subscription or not? Well, we go back to that subscription pricing field and the twin field functionality. Returning to my product record, if I go to the membership and scroll to the subscriptions section, I see that subscription pricing is not null. There's a value of fixed price. The other potential value is percent of total. Now let's go to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich itself. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich is not a subscription. Therefore, subscription pricing is null. So from a logic side of things, I know I'm working with the subscription pricing field. And I essentially want to take the end result of the price waterfall and sum that up. What is the end of the price waterfall? The end of the price waterfall is the net total. Returning to the same quote, I'll click on the quote line here. I put my fields somewhat, I think I did this already. Not quite. These are almost in price waterfall order. For whatever reason, when you install the package, these price information fields are not in price waterfall order, which is annoying. I'm going to go ahead and change these now, just since I'm here. Why not? This will add a little bit more to the call. I think we should be able to finish this by the time I'm done. I like my quote line pricing information fields to be in price waterfall order because it helps me figure out where things are going wrong. If the journey to the final price is to start with the original price and go to the net price, if those fields are out of order, just visually it's confusing for the brain. I want things to flow. It's a waterfall. The water goes from the top to the bottom. Let's make sure that our fields align in such a way that that is also true. To that end, let's dive into this. We have, first and foremost, the original price. The original price always pulls from the price book entry. If you want, you can do some admin stuff here. You can make the field read only, whatever. It'll add the lock. Then we get our list unit price, which is a function of the original price and the quantity. Then we end up with our special price, which is somewhere. Special price is, where's special price? Oh, there it is, right in front of my eyes. There we go. Special price, and then we have the regular price. And this contracted price, this actually fits between the unit price and the special price. Our discount schedules fit between the special price and the regular price. Our additional discounts happen between the regular price and the customer price. And then we've got our partner unit price. That goes between the customer unit price. So our customer price minus the partner discount gets us our partner unit price. The partner unit price minus the distributor discount gets us our net unit price, and so on. If you're so inclined, I like to add those in here as well. So I'll throw my discount. Where's my distributor discount? My distributor discount, that goes here. My additional discount, I'll take discount. What's this one? That's the amount, that's the percent. Here's my additional discount. I'll pull that in here. You can pull in more of those if you want. You can pull your discount schedule up underneath here. There is an article in the community as well about which discount schedules are applied first. We have 2 different discount schedules in play. Well, technically 3. You have discounts based on volume or quantity. You have discounts based on time or duration. You have discounts based on the cost structure. So if I sell bags of gravel, when I buy gravel from my from the gravel pit down the street, if I buy a whole lot of it, I pay less for it, which increases my margin. If I sell it for $10 a bag, but when I buy it from them, if I buy a whole bunch of it, I'm able to get, $2 a bag instead of $3 a bag. I can factor that cost discount schedule in as well. We also have term discount schedules. Those come in here. I forget which one is actually first, but one of these fires first. Block pricing is in here too. So if you wanted to put block pricing in, block pricing fits in here somewhere about there. Then we got our prorated list price, prorated unit price, that fits right about there. Or sorry, no, special price, prorated price. You get the idea. There's all sorts of pricing stuff that happens. You'll eventually learn the order in which these things go on. On the right side, I have my totals. So we're going to take our list total, our regular total, customer total, partner total, net total. Close enough. Let's finish building this out in the next 5 minutes. But what this allows me to do when I put the fields in this sequence is it gives me a mechanism, a more efficient way to troubleshoot issues. Because if I see that the price is $100 from the original price all the way down, great. I know that no discounts have been applied or whatever. But if it changes and somewhere along the line, it's now $110 or $90, I could see when that happened. And based on when the price changed, I can determine what affected the price to make a change in that way. Helps speed up the troubleshooting process. Anyway, let's go back to the quote line. If I know that the subscription pricing field is what determines whether a product is a subscription or not, this is the field we're going to work with. Now, what functions do we have available to us if I'm using the subscription pricing field? So I could say, we essentially have 2 outcomes. If subscription pricing is null, it's one time. If subscription pricing is not null, it's recurring, which means that my non-recurring revenue for if this was a subscription line like the membership or support, that I should print $0 for non-recurring revenue on that line. Okay. But if it is null, then I will print whatever the total price is. And that's why that's to get all the way around. That's why I rearranged these fields, is because I wanted you to see that at the end of the day, the net total is what determines, that's the final price of my products. At the end of the day, when all the math is done, the net total is what ends up being the final piece. Now the net total for our non-recurring revenue products, that's my goal. Is it recurring or not recurring? If it's not recurring, okay, great. Let's take that subset of quote lines and add up the net total of all of those, and that's our non-recurring revenue. I think is null is still, yeah, so there's is null, is blank. Okay, great. So checks whether the expression is null and then returns true. False is blank is slightly different. We might just use an if statement here because this is the pick list. So now you're watching me think through. I haven't actually built this in a while, so I got to think through what I want my formula to be. I think I'm just going to use an if statement. There might be a more optimal way for me to do this. I'll figure that out in the future. So the logical test of this function is going to be if subscription pricing is null, then I'm going to inject the net total. Otherwise, if it is not null, then I'll inject 0. It's going to be angry at me though, because subscription pricing is a pick list. Let's get rid of that extra. All right, here's my logic. If the value of the subscription pricing field, which as we know is either null or not null, if it's null, it means we're not using subscription pricing, which means it's a non-recurring revenue product, which means I need to sum the net total of that product, grab the net total of that product. That's what's going to be there. Otherwise, print 0. When I check the syntax, though, it's going to say, hey, this is a pick list field. You can't just do a check like that. The CPQ is a pick list field. It's only supported by certain functions. Okay. This is where we get into another formula called isPickVal. The pickval checks whether the value of a pick list is equal to a string. So let's reconstruct this. Let's get our isPickval in here. What's the pick list field in question? That's our subscription pricing field. I'm going to copy that, paste that into here. Okay. What's my literal value? Null. There's 2 quotes, no space in between. Now let's grab this. Cut. We'll take this out and we'll paste that in. So if the pick list value of the subscription pricing field is null, then grab the net total. Otherwise, print 0. Let's see if it's happy with this. No merge or syntax, compile size. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and save this. First, I'm going to grab this and copy it. I have a little text file over here that I keep open at all times. I'm stealing this from a blogger that I follow. He calls it his working memory.txt file. It's kind of like I need to get something out of my head and put it somewhere. It's just a quick little text file that I put stuff in. That's going to work. All right, let's save. But before I go through the trouble of adding the pick list, adding the field API names to the pick lists and doing all this other stuff, or building the actual price action, one of the nice things about creating formula test field for yourself on the quote line object is the fact that I can actually test this right now. If I find a quote line, PB&J Club membership, if I refresh this, I'll see my formula test field now in the page layout. Formula test is printing $0. That's exactly what I wanted. This is not going to contribute to non-recurring revenue because this is a recurring product. On this particular quote, I don't have one-time products. That's easily fixed. Let's add one. Let's get a sandwich on here really quick. Add products, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Select. Now I have two quote lines for recurring, which are my peanut butter, my membership and my support. I have some non-recurring products, peanut butter jelly sandwich. Let's go ahead and do 100 of those too. Why not? Calculate. There's a really expensive lunch. All right, to test our solution, let's find one of the products we know is not recurring. I'll do white bread. That sounds good. I go to white bread, formula test, $200. Is that true? $200. Great. I know my formula worked. Now I'll take the formula from my text file over here. I copy that. I go back to my price action and I paste it in the formula. There we go. Now I don't have to worry about the syntax check because I already did that in my formula test field. Once I save, I'm confident this is going to work. The other beauty of this is that this is a very elegant solution. Good job, John. Elegant solution. I have one price rule that's updating 3 different fields for monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue, and non-recurring revenue. Those are going to calculate automatically on the quote lines. And then as we'll see, if I wanted to, I could do a roll up on the quote. I could pass that over to the opportunity products. I could roll that up on the opportunity as well, and really just take the one calculation and explode it everywhere in the system. Let's check it though to make sure that it works. Returning to my quote line, I see that so far I have no values calculated here on my white bread. If I wanted to, technically it would have calculated values when I saved, but right now my price action is set up to print null in monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue. But if you want, you could round out your whole data set, fill these in as well by replacing null with 0 in those formulas. And then every single quote line will have a value, but a lot of them will be 0. We'll return to the quote. I'll do a quick edit, reloads my price rule, save, fires the price rule, saves the records. Now, when I return to the same quote line for the white bread, I'll see my non-recurring revenue plugged in here. I still have my monthly and annual are 0, but you know what? I made a decision. I'd really like to see zeros in those fields, just to be more precise. It's not really null. It is 0. This contributes $0. How would I do that? I'll go back to the price actions in question, a little edit. I'll replace this null with 0. Save. For annual recurring revenue, edit. I'll replace null with 0. Save. Let's test. I return to the quote, edit, price rules load in memory. I save. Anytime I save, it runs calculation and saves the records. I return to the quote line. Now I should see 0, 0, and 200. Similarly, if I go to a recurring product like my membership, I will see 12,000, 1,000, and 0. Now I'm calculating what is the annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, and non-recurring revenue for every single quote line that I can then pass downstream to my opportunity products, roll up to my opportunity, roll up to my quote, pass the order products, pass the assets, pass the subscriptions. And I now have you take the data upstream, just like you're dyeing the Chicago River green on St. Patrick's Day, you dump the dye in up at the top of the river, it flows down and turns the whole thing green. Same thing here. With that, I'm going to end today's call. Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at johngarvins.com and send me your queries. I will happily answer them for you. Until next
Thank you,
time,
John.
yeah, take care. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.